I did not see this tantrum coming from Calgary Flames forward Nazem Kadri. After it looks like he may be unhappy in Calgary, several insane trade reports have come out linking Naz to a boatload of contenders. Safe to say, if you show any emotion in Cowtown, you're going to end up in trade rumors. We're going to get into all that more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I'm Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around your Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family, and let's talk about last night's game because that is where the whole inspiration for this video stems from and kind of has a lot of people talking, to be honest. So let's get into last night's game. A 4-1 loss on home ice to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Everybody on Team Tank pretty happy. I mean, you always want to cheer for your team to win, but you can be glad when the Flames do not get any points. Vancouver won last night. I know there's some other teams we're always keeping our eyes on: Chicago, St. Louis, Winnipeg. The Western Conference is just abysmal this year, but yes, a 4-1 loss. We'll get into the Kadri bit of news in a second here, but first, we'll get into the box score. So Dustin Wolf, statistically, not a good game at all. Gives up 4 goals on 25 shots. The .840 save percentage, not so bueno. His performance, I wouldn't say it was bad, probably pretty mid, but hey, a loss is a loss. Didn't do enough to get the win, and neither did the offense. The Flames only got 1 goal in this game. It was by Sharky. It was a buzzer beater to end the period there, and White Cloud and Ball were the 2 guys getting the assists, the exact guys you would expect to get assists. It's interesting. I think there's going to be a bit of an internal debate here whether to keep White Cloud as that exact Rasmus Andersson replacement on the pairing with Ball, or maybe once Parek's ready, obviously put Parek with Ball, or even Brustevich has been pretty good with Hanley, and Hanley's not a bad partner to have, but would you put Brustevich in with Ball to kind of give Brustevich that freedom as well? But either way, the main piece, the main talking point from yesterday's game was kind of the big tantrum, or tantrums in a way, for Nazem Kadri here. So as the win column points out, frustrations brew. Overall, a frustrating night for Flames hockey, especially for Nazem Kadri. And we saw him earlier in the game looking frustrated on the bench. He was talking with Zary, or it almost looked like he was just really upset. Who knows if that was actually with Zary or with the coaching or just with himself. Same kind of thing with Gridden. Was he coaching Gridden in a way? Was he just kind of upset? Not too sure. But then later in the game, obviously, he kind of threw a full-on tantrum, was banging his stick on the boards, that kind of thing, and looked upset. And then, of course, Flames fans, hockey fans in general, saw this and were thinking, oh my gosh, he must just be so upset in Calgary, let's trade him. And I don't have any of those screenshots of like fans talking, but I do have a bunch of Kadri trade reports, and there's one specific article in general that's actually from a couple days ago. This article came out before this little, I guess, tantrum, we can call it, that we did not see coming. But Ryan Delaney a couple days ago wrote, Flames trade rumors, Nazem Kadri wants to do what's best for Flames, but also wants to chase a cup. So interesting there. Already just from the headline, is this coming from Kadri himself saying, yeah, I'll do what's best for the team, but I want to go win the cup, and that's not going to happen here? Not necessarily, but after last night, people are starting to think they know Kadri's emotions a little more. Personally, I think it was just frustrations from the game, not playing too well. That doesn't mean he wants out of Calgary. It was just a bad game. And look, he's had a bad start to 2026. The previous couple games before the Penguins game, he wasn't too bad. He seemed refreshed on a line with Gridden and Zary, but I mean, all good things must come to an end, I suppose. Let's get into the article. So regarding Kadri, Darren Dreger reported that the center has received interest from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, Colorado Avalanche, Los Angeles Kings, and the Dallas Stars. A bunch of your, regular suspects in there. Dreger also noted that Flames GM Craig Conroy has been in contact with Kadri's camp about a potential trade. The full quote is as follows. Dreger said, I think the hockey world is looking at teams like the Calgary Flames and wondering what that next move might be. A lot of us are looking at Nazem Kadri among the contenders of players who could be on the move. And what I can tell you is that there are ongoing conversations between Craig Conroy and Nazem Kadri's camp. So very interesting there. Internal talks within the organization. Conroy kind of doing what he did with Andersson reportedly, and talking to, the player, at least the player's camp first, about a potential trade. I'm sure Kadri has some destinations he would be willing to go to and some ones he definitely wouldn't. Here is Dreger's quote to continue. Now, that doesn't mean anything is imminent. Kadri wants to do what's best for the Flames. But guys, he also wants to chase and win a Stanley Cup. So I'd say there's developing interest kicking from Toronto, Montreal, Colorado, LA, and maybe the Dallas Stars. There's still a lot of work to get done, and there's no rush as far as Calgary is concerned. I don't know if all 5 of those teams are necessarily chasing a cup this year. At least a couple of them don't look absolutely fantastic in my opinion, but I'm not going to disclose who that is. Continuing with Dreger here, he said, I had a chance to speak with Conroy in the wake of the Andersson trade as we broke that down. Blake Coleman and Naz are the obvious 2 veterans people are going to wonder about leading up to March 6th. Conroy's answer in some ways was revealing, saying it's a tough one. Conroy went on to say that he's not going to say that those guys are definitely not moving, but he's also open to taking calls. This is about the Flames getting younger and ultimately continuing to transition that roster. At the end of the day, they're ready to keep Blake Coleman. He's an important leader in that dressing room, but they can't say that 100%. There might just be an offer that puts it over the top, given the interest that there is on the market for Coleman, where they just can't say no. This one may just go the limit when it comes to Coleman. So revealing some stuff about Kadri, about Coleman. A lot of fans think that it's in the best interest for the Flames to trade those players now instead of in their last year like they did with Andersson, because then you get the chance that you get handcuffed. And yes, it comes down to a business. Is that the most realistic world? No, but it's definitely a possibility. So what can you make of this speculation? Well, the Flames are in a position to get a great return for Coleman, as he's a solid goal scorer, a 2-time Cup champion, has term, and is on a cheap contract, especially with retention. If he's available on the market, you have to assume the Flames will have a ton of teams calling about him, and they should actively be looking to shop him. As for Kadri, he's in the 4th year of a 7-year contract with a cap hit of $7 million. It stands to reason that he'd be a little more difficult to move, given that retaining for 3 is uncommon in this scenario. That said, he's a second-line center that a contender would love to have, and that's true. It might be a little bit tougher to trade him, but there's always the chance there. I mean, retention will almost have to be part of it, but that's not exactly ideal for the Flames, but neither is signing contracts that big. Thanks a lot, Brad. Some other rumors. So David Pagnotta was also speaking out on Kadri. So he said a lot of teams that have interest in him have told Calgary, we want to know if you're going to retain on that deal. I think the message back was, we'll consider it. We're open to that. So the Flames, as we know, are open to retaining on salary. They only have 1 slot left for this year after the Andersson trade. Obviously already retaining on Andersson and Markstrom, and potentially Kadri as well. More rumors. This one back from Dreger again. So he said there's a buzz around Coleman, and of course every player is tradable. I think they like the look of keeping Coleman and Backlund, because you're not taking it down to the wood. You need culture type players, and that just truly is the fact of the matter. There really aren't any untouchables on the Flames right now. You would think guys like Wolf, Parekh, maybe Coronato, and some other prospects are untouchable, but guys like Coleman, Backlund, you hear their names come up. We're going to hear the names of guys like Lombard, Cooley, Backlund, as you see here. Those are going to come up more as well as we get closer to the deadline, and if there are more trades for the Flames, then who's next kind of thing. The dominoes do fall. Last report here back from Pagnotta. He said soon after word spread that the Flames moved Rasmus Andersson, several teams reached out to Calgary Flames GM Craig Conroy about defenseman Zach Whitecloud, whom he acquired from the Knights. And I know a lot of people would love to keep Whitecloud around. Such a character guy, great for the dressing room, and has honestly been great so far. One of the few guys to get a point last night. But he does have trade value, so we're going to hear his name a bunch as we head closer to the deadline, of course. But despite Kadri's tantrum, if you want to call it that, or him lashing out, showing some emotion, I don't think that means he's unhappy, but a trade could still happen. So there's your latest on the trade rumors. Now, all right, for the second day in a row, we had some technical difficulties, but here we go with the comment of the day. Didn't want to skip this part. It comes from yesterday's video, of course, and it comes from Magic for Life. They say, I have a Kadri jersey. Would be sad to see him go, but I think a trade is inevitable for him to chase another cup and bring us back future assets. And again, it's kind of what we just spoke about. It goes perfectly, but it is true. It is kind of an ideal scenario, probably for both parties. Magic for Life continues. At this point, I think I'll just get a any name number 0 jersey, not knowing who is staying long term. And that's kind of how it is as Flames fans right now. No player safe anymore for a jersey, or you just get one that one day will be a collectible at this point. But that's a funny way to look at it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to what you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.